welcome on back to the 4th and 30 podcast. Glad to have you again with us here this week in what was single-handedly the best weekend of professional, probably sports of all time. I'm not going to derail that with Hall of Fame voting, but if you're into that, we'll get to that at the end. But we're just going to jump right into it, and we're going to start with one of the better games, and we'll work in the two from Saturday. Then we'll finish with the last one. But the first one that I would like to talk about is the Rams versus the Bucks. So we almost got to see Tom Brady do it yet again. This is really the first time I've seen Tom Brady not win that game. You know, it just we were in the group chat the entire time. For those of you that aren't in our group chat,
All
just
of
like,
you.
man, this feels witchy. Like it was 27 to, was it 13?
I think it was 27
something.
to 3, wasn't it? At one time.
It was
Yeah,
definitely
but it just
27 to 6.
but it just felt witchy. I think it was when it was 27-13, we were just like, oh, this just feels like Tom Brady. And it did. You know, Tom Brady tried. But what I wanted to talk about specifically is Sean McVay. So, you know, great coach, but you go and get playmakers, and the Rams are dependent on their playmakers. And then with 4 minutes left in the fourth, you're up 14 points. You run the ball twice and then have Stafford throw a little out route, 3 and out, go. You get the ball back 27-20 with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. You run the ball twice and Cam Akers fumbles. You're a team built on playmakers. You went and got Stafford, gave away the farm for Stafford, and you didn't use them. Like, that's on McVay, right? So they still ended up winning the game, but they tried to lose that game. Let Stafford do what he does and find a receiver on an 8-yard slant and get that first down. A first down wins that game right there. And he just ran the ball.
They had the first down, but they fumbled it away. It's not McVay's. I don't put that on McVay. They fumbled 4 times in the game. 4 fumbles. And, you know, when the score was 27-13, fourth quarter just starting, I'm thinking, yeah, this game's not over because they have Tom Brady and the Rams are not putting him away. I will say, Carl, to your point, they could have been more aggressive at times. They definitely could have been more aggressive, but they had the first down and they fumbled it multiple times. Cooper Kupp had a fumble. Akers had a fumble. I mean, those are late. They're lucky to come away with it. Lucky, you know, they got kind of lucky there. But to me, it's Cooper Kupp. It's not Cooper Kupp's the MVP of this team. You see what he did on the final drive to win the game. I know you can't take playoffs into account for league MVP, but my vote for league MVP is Cooper Kupp. He is the only receiver that is doing what he's doing. Quarterbacks, you have some great ones that have already won MVPs. Get Cooper Kupp in there. Let a receiver win it for once.
I'm not going to say he's not deserving, but that's not going to happen. We all know that. So I think the play calling to me, Carl, like what you said, it sure seemed like it was the situation where he didn't want to put Stafford in that because if there was an interception or something like that, he's going to get rode out of town on a rail. So I think his play calling was more scared play calling than, and pretty much what you said, but I think it was because he was nervous of the backlash of what would happen if Stafford threw one of his world famous pick sixes, you know, on a 5-yard, 7-yard slant route. So they hung on, they won, but it was definitely scared play calling at the end of the game.
McVay did the same thing against the Niners in Week 18, and they lost that game. Ran 3 times, 3 and out, punted right back to San Francisco, and they tied the game. So, like, he's got a history of doing it.
I don't even know if he's scared of the backlash so much as he's scared of, we've seen Stafford do it a few times. I mean, this year he's thrown some pick sixes, and a pick six in that game could have, I mean, I don't know if the Rams win that game if they throw a pick six. That being said, I think that it was impressive to see Stafford come up with a big play at the end. I mean, the Bucs clearly got burnt in coverage, but Stafford, we had a lot of questions about him. I mean, we talked about in the group chat. Brady or Stafford in this fourth quarter. It doesn't matter who's winning. Who do you rather have? I think everyone was kind of on the side of Brady, except for maybe Cody because he's a big Stafford guy.
No,
I
I
think
mean,
I
fourth
think
quarter,
Cody
you
was
always
more
take
for
Brady.
But I mean, it was nice to see Stafford come up big with that big play at the end, hitting cup deep. Yes, the Bucks coverage was burnt, but still, I mean, you still got to make the play, and he did. Got him into field goal range. Hurry! You saw him yelling at his teammates, "Hey, get down here! We're gonna spike this ball!" Because for some reason people were piddling down the field. It was good to see Stafford get in that situation and finish the game. I think, like I said, I think that he was just more worried about Stafford throwing an interception. I know you can't play scared necessarily, but we've seen Stafford do it a few times. That being said, you said the Rams are built on weapons. Man, Cooper Kupp's been balling out, but Odell Beckham Jr. has been a huge second weapon for them. He has been great the last few weeks for them. They would not be the same team without him, without a doubt, because Van Jefferson's not getting he had some big catches and big run after catch in that game. Um, it's just they don't have anybody else.
Well,
Robert Woods out. They especially don't have anyone else that can do that.
that's what's so vital about OBJ is that Van Jefferson is an okay number 2 guy. He is a phenomenal number 3 guy. You know what I mean? So when you
Yeah.
have weapons like that and you can move Van Jefferson to your third wide receiver, that just adds that much more potential. And I saw
Yeah.
the meme. I sent it in our chat. I don't remember exactly how it went, but to bash on Baker Mayfield a little bit, it said Baker Mayfield is bad enough to make everyone believe that OBJ was washed, and then you put OBJ in this situation, and he's back to balling. He's back to being OBJ.
But on the Rams, the mid to late season pickup that matters more than OBJ is definitely Von Miller. Von Miller and on the other side of Aaron Donald, that played a huge role. Tom Brady probably got
And Leonard
pressured more than
Floyd.
any playoff game he's ever been in. So, like, that you could tell Brady did not have the time that he would want. And yeah, we got to see Tampa Bay have to do it with a hurt offensive line. Everybody wants to talk about the Super Bowl last year and how the Chiefs kind of failed, and everybody's like, "No, the offensive line." Well, this was Brady's turn, and you see what it turns out to. The Rams have a hell of a pass rush, and they were doing everything they could to get after him. And Von Miller was a huge reason for that.
He
Yeah,
looked fresh. We said that last week. He looks fresh.
we wouldn't have done the Rams justice without talking about their defense. Arguably, the strength of their team is their defense, and that's scary. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. The way their defense has played in these 2 playoff games, stepping up, makes them much scarier of a team than we thought maybe coming into the playoffs.
For sure. That pass rush with Floyd, Donald, and Von Miller. I know we're prisoners of the moment of all the time, like we say outright, but I don't know that I don't know many pass rushers that have had 3 guys that can get after the quarterback like that. Like that's an insane 3 guys to get after. If you're just talking about the 3 best pass rushers you have, that's an insane group right there.
Yeah. Um, I thought the way that game was taking shape, and since Brady's moved to Tampa Bay, I've grown to appreciate Brady, kind of like how I appreciated Kobe in his last few years. Wasn't always a fan, hated Brady, hated Kobe for a while when T-Mac was playing, but I've grown to appreciate Brady's greatness, and I really thought for a second we were going to get to see him forced into retirement the way the Rams were dismantling them the first 2.5, 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden, it was like Brady flipped a switch, went back to 25-year-old Tom Brady, and was just dissecting everything. So I'm not sure we've seen the last of Tom Brady. I know he's kind of like leaving it kind of wishy-washy in all his statements. But that was a Tom Brady moment at the end of that game, minus the W.
How about Brady's first unsportsmanlike conduct?
Yeah.
You think about that, 22 years of football, and that's your first unsportsmanlike. That is nuts. And to be fair, we've all seen it. And he even said it the week before that he gets away with quite a bit of shit talk to the refs. Well, I think it was the hat when he bumped his hat with his face mask. I think that's what drew the flag, but it's still, that was kind of fun to see. It's like, whoa, that doesn't happen.
The best was the meme with the guy from Dodgeball overlaid, and it said, "Nobody makes me bleed my own blood."
He did bite his own lip, though.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's not done. I don't believe it. He's coming back.
I think we all saw that he can still play at the end of that game. But I don't know. The way he talked the last couple weeks, it just felt a little bit different. I think there really is a chance he might retire with how he's talked the last couple weeks because he even came out and said that he's considered that he can't actually play forever. He's never
Yeah.
said anything like that before. He's always talked about playing until he was 50. I think it just feels a little bit different. I think there might be a chance that he might be done.
Well, his
Yeah.
kids might be getting to an age he wants to be involved too. I mean,
I thought I saw a quote about that, but I can't find it now. He said something about how he needs to be a father. It's some like he needs to be a father to his kids and a husband to his wife Giselle, but I can't find the quote now.
You know, there's worlds difference between a an amateur athlete like myself and the GOAT like Tom Brady, but I would never want to see myself play until the day where I wasn't any good anymore. Kind of like Eli when he got benched in New York and didn't get to play out the end of the year. And Eli's no superstar. He's no GOAT conversation guy, but he had a pretty good career. And to see him kind of go off like that to where he just wasn't playing and just set the bench. Same with Paul Pierce. Kobe got his farewell tour. All these guys get their farewell tour. Paul Pierce set the bench his entire didn't even play in his last game. And I don't want to see somebody like Brady do that. I'm not sure it's time for him to leave, but I don't want to see the GOAT of football take his last year sitting on the bench because he just doesn't have it anymore. I mean, he had an MVP caliber year this year. He didn't win the Super Bowl, but there's not much better to go out on.
I really honestly wanted to see the Bucks play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl so that when Mahomes beat him, then Mahomes had a chance to be the GOAT. Now, since he lost, does Mahomes ever have a chance? We'll never know.
all right. So we'll keep it in the NFC. We'll do 49ers and Packers next. And I do have one little caveat of a stat here. In this year's playoffs, Travis Kelce has more passing touchdowns than Jimmy G or Aaron Rodgers. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said all I really want to talk about in this game because I don't even know what to say about this game. It was a close competitive game. For the most part, it was semi fun to watch. But you're sitting there scratching your head the entire game, like how is this? And I said it. I think it was halftime or getting third quarter. I'm like, this feels like a game the Packers are going to lose. Like they have no business losing this game, but it feels like a game that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are going to lose. And sure enough, they did. I honestly don't even have words for this game. Aaron Rodgers did not throw a touchdown pass. The only passing touchdown they had was a rushing touchdown. I don't know. I don't even have words for what happened in that game, to be honest.
Yeah, and
You
then
can,
go ahead, Guy.
you can just mark it down when the Packers and Aaron Rodgers play the 49ers in the playoffs. I said it last week. 49ers are going to somehow come out with a victory. That game
They own them.
should not have been close.
It shouldn't have.
It should not have been close.
What was Garoppolo at halftime? Like 3 for 11 passing
No,
or something
when you
stupid
let-
like that.
When you let teams hang around and you don't put them away, that's what happens.
The Packers' first drive, it looked like it was gonna be a blowout, and then after that, you're like, "What is going on?"
And the narrative all week building up to that game was the Packers are getting a bunch of people back from injury. They're healthy. It's in Lambeau. The weather's, Packers favorable. They're used to it. Jimmy G's never started a game that below 32 degrees, and this was 0 or 4 or whatever it was. And it looked like the narrative was that this is going to be a cakewalk for the Packers. And it should have been. The Niners didn't play all that well. Jimmy G in particular didn't play very well. But when you have somebody like Deebo Samuel who can literally do it all on the football field, the Niners found a way to win that game somehow.
Yeah, and, hats off to the 49ers. They're in the NFC Championship again. You got to give Kyle Shanahan a lot of credit. You got to give that locker room a lot of credit. They're not the most talented team. Kind of the same way I feel about my Steelers is they do not give up, and they find ways to win games when they shouldn't. That being said, we'll talk about the next week's matchup later. But switching to the Packers, you have to wonder where the Packers are going to go from here. if this was an NBA squad, this team would have been blown up 4 years ago. Now, it takes longer in the NFL for that to happen than the NBA. NBA, you make the playoffs a couple years, you have championship aspirations, you're blowing it up. But the Packers script seems to be the same ever since they won their, Rodgers won his only Super Bowl. It's very good regular season team, doesn't win in the playoffs, and it's it's a trend now, and it's been going on for a while. So you have to wonder, is this just Aaron Rodgers and his ego and attitude aside? Are the Packers done? Are they gonna move on from Aaron Rodgers? Are they ready? I would say the fans probably aren't. Fans probably want him to stick around as long as he's, as long as he's there. But I have a feeling that organization may be ready to move on, kind of like they did with Brett Favre.
So the Packers, like, Aaron Rodgers is your number one priority. Figure that out. Your number two priority is your special teams coordinator. Whoever the hell that is, get him out of there immediately. That's why they lost this game.
Mhm.
They are just completely inept on special teams. And they have been for a long time, not just this year. They've been one of the worst special teams in the league for 3 or 4 years now. So that's got to change. And then, when you figure out Aaron Rodgers, well, we've all seen probably their cap number coming up this year. They're going to be 46 million over the cap, and 44 million over the cap, something
Rodgers
like that.
is 45 million or something like
And
that.
Rodgers is 45, so it just kind of makes sense.
And Devontae Adams, is he signed?
Well, they
No,
have to
he's-
re-sign him.
Right.
Yeah,
He's going
resign.
to be $20 million. Like,
It's gonna be
you
tough.
don't have enough money at this point to keep Rodgers. So just, to plan your offseason, I think it makes more sense to cut him loose and trade him like the day after the Super Bowl. Say, hey, phones are open. Because it just doesn't make sense to play this game clear up past the draft when you might need to do something before then. So
Yeah.
I will say this. I know that I've gotten criticism before by bringing up QBR. This was Aaron Rodgers' worst playoff QBR in his career at a 19.4 QBR in this game. For those of you who don't know, QBR, it's out of 100. Jimmy Garoppolo, who was 11 of 19 for 131 yards and an interception, had 11.9 QBR. So not even much separation between the two quarterbacks in this game when you expect Rodgers to be much better than his opponent.
Back to the special teams. Yeah, I said that in our group chat, I think, or to somebody, that special teams coordinator needed to be let go Monday morning. And so they had the blunder, they had the blocked punt. What was the other snafu?
10 men
Well,
on the field.
other than that, there
Missed
was
field
one
goal.
missed field goal.
They
Yeah.
missed-
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, but that's the icing on the cake is the 10 players on the field. Game-winning
I don't
play.
know how that happened.
Game-winning play, and you only get 10 players on the field.
Whoever the
Probably
11th player was should be cut too.
probably wouldn't have made a difference having 11 guys out there. Field goal blocks are pretty rare. They happen, but they're pretty rare. But
Don't worry,
that
punt blocks.
yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. That's just icing on the cake. Game
Yeah,
on the line scenario, and you only get 10 players.
I would
That's-
argue that 10 players on the field is worse than the block punt. Block punts happen. People make good plays. Your punting, your field goal defense team is the same all year, I would imagine. Same 11 players. Get out there, get on the field, know your role.
And it's for the
That's-
game-winning field goal.
Lose, you go home.
But to be fair, Robbie Gold was kicking it, so
He doesn't
never
miss
missed a kick in the playoffs before. So it was
The-
kind of a shoe in.
The videos of him warming up that have resurfaced are hilarious. There was
From
the
the
one
5
from
yard.
the game where he was kicking over the Packers entrance before the game Monday or Saturday, and then against the Cowboys he was kicking over top of their cheerleaders. And I know that in warm-ups you can make that ball have a pretty high trajectory, but he wasn't kicking but 5 or 10 yards from their heads. And if he'd have nailed one of them, it'd have been sad and hilarious at the same time.
Talk about the ultimate icing. You've got the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders just in 2
Yeah.
lines beside you, and you've got to kick. High pressure situations call for high pressure people, and he's one of those high pressure.
He is.
Alrighty. First game on Saturday was Bengals at Titans. So just everybody, if you didn't watch last week, Kai picked 3 road dogs to win. He just picked the wrong 3 road dogs to win. He did
Not
not
all
pick
three.
the. Huh?
49ers won.
Yeah, but you didn't pick the Bengals over the Titans.
Well, that's
You
you
picked the
said
Bills over the
yeah.
Chiefs.
Well, the way you said it is that I picked all 3 road dogs wrong.
No,
Go ahead.
you
Go.
were right about 3 road dogs
I just had
winning.
to make sure the
You
audience
just
knew.
had the wrong 3. Yeah,
Yeah. You had 2
you
out
had
of the
2
3.
of the
Oh,
2
okay.
out of 3.
Yeah, I'm stupid. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But yeah, my big thing from the Bengals game is Evan McPherson is a stud. That dude is cold blooded. Um, as a rookie to do that in the playoffs.
Been doing it
I
all
mean,
year too.
What was the quote he said to Joe Burrow before he went out there?
Looks like we're going to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think before he went out there, he
After-
said, looks like we're going to the
after-
AFC Championship.
After a practice swing with his leg, too. Took one final practice swing, looked at Joe Burrow and said, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship. Can you imagine the nuts you have to do that?
That's like Babe Ruth level calling your shot.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when you walk up to the tee blocks right before you slice the hell out of it when you thought it was going to go 350.
Okay,
310.
so theoretical
310.
situation. He misses the field goal. They go to overtime. Titans win. Does Joe Burrow ever tell anybody that story?
Mm-mm.
Ever?
Mm-mm.
Never
Unless
tells a
he was
single
mic'd
word.
up.
At his
If McPherson makes a game winner in overtime, yes, he tells that story.
no,
Yeah, only
he
if they win.
does.
But if they lose
He does at their retirement ceremony.
at the retire, yeah.
This one time when we were sophomores, or I was a sophomore and McPherson was a freshman, he did this thing.
No, other than
Yes.
that, Ryan Tannehill looked about as average and bad as Kyler likes to talk about. He hit the nail right on the head. I don't think any of us would have saw 3 interceptions coming, but yeah, that was not a good performance by their very, very average QB. Derrick Henry also did not have a huge show out, but he does have a plate and screws in his foot, so I kind of give him a pass there. Yeah, Titans had a chance to, ice the game, put it away, and Bengals came back. Bengals are playing tough, and that's all you can ask for this time of year.
The Titans, or Tannehill, looked like a wide receiver playing quarterback. And that's what he is sometimes.
See?
Sometimes he looks like a quarterback that could play wide receiver. Saturday he looked like a wide receiver that was playing quarterback. The Bengals they're playing lights out right now. The Titans didn't play particularly well, and it still came down to a field goal, but that's not taking anything away from the Bengals. As for Tannehill throwing 3 picks, if you had told me before the game he was going to throw 3 picks, I'd have said, I wouldn't have bet on that. But after the first play, when he threw one on the first play of the game, I might have changed my betting mind then. But good on the Bengals, man. Good for Bengals fans. They're not, I don't know any obnoxious Bengals fans. They've been shit for so many years, only making the playoffs a few times in the last 25 years. And so for them to get there, get to the AFC Championship, have the outlook that they have with Burrow and Jamar Chase and McPherson and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon, things are going to be good, and it's going to be well in Cincinnati for a while now.
Yeah. I'm happy for the Bengals. As a Steelers fan, if this was the Browns or Ravens, that would be disgusting. For whatever reason it is, I don't know what it is about the Bengals. They're not that bad. I'm happy for them. I'm glad it's them rather than the other 2 teams in the division. Joe Burrow's a winner. He's gonna win a Super Bowl at some point. He's a winner. He's got it in him. The Titans. That Titans defense, for the longest time, that was what held them back. What everybody thought. That is a Super Bowl caliber defense. They shut down one of the better offenses in the league, made them work for every inch. But Ryan Tannehill's just not the guy. I mean, you have Julio Jones, who's old, but Julio Jones showed up ready to play in this game. You have A.J. Brown, who is an absolute stud. Been injured, but Ryan Tannehill did not get the job done. Derrick Henry, you can't really expect a lot from an older running back coming off that bad of an injury in a playoff game when he hasn't played in 10 weeks. I thought they did a good job of mixing in the other running backs. Foreman had a good game. And, Tannehill just didn't get it done. It's really, I think, I don't like blaming the quarterback on everything. I've defended Big Ben all year. But this time of year, unless you're the 49ers, you need that quarterback. And Tannehill's not it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. A.J. Brown made Tannehill look better than he was in this game for sure.
That ball
A.J.
was
Brown,
so underthrown down the sideline.
A.J. Brown's a beast,
He
and
is.
I don't even know if we know how good he is because he's playing with Tannehill, to be honest. I've given Tannehill some props throughout the last year and a half, and man, he has just gone to prove me wrong. I think he's exactly what Kyler thought he was, about a top 20 quarterback, not a top 50, well, maybe top 25 quarterback.
Hypothetical. Where do the Titans go with Kirk Cousins? Do they win that game?
I mean, I would assume, I
I'm
would think
saying
they would win that
yes.
game. I would think they would win that game.
I'm
with Kirk
back on the
Cousins.
Kirk Cousins bandwagon.
Wouldn't
mean,
you want him in Pittsburgh?
All you have to do is
No.
not give him
We
three
don't have the team for
interceptions.
him. We don't have the team for him.
Like, you don't even have to have an exceptional game. Just don't throw 3 interceptions and you win that game. I mean,
We were literally talking about Tannehill as he threw that first interception on the first
yes,
play of the
we
game.
were.
Like legitimately
He's
mid
just not it.
sentence.
Someone just said something about how he was doing okay or something, and I don't know. And then I was like, you were saying?
It was Kyler saying where would they be if they didn't have an average QB, and we were talking about
Oh.
that, and then he threw that interception first play of the game. Ugh.
That game is. You said you don't want to blame the quarterback. That game was on Tannehill. I mean, granted, the running game is not what it was at the beginning of the year. Henry ran the ball 20 times for 62 yards. Foreman ran the ball 4 times for 66 yards, though. I mean, you did
He
get some
needed more
production
carries.
You did get some production out of Foreman. The running game isn't what it was, so you needed Tannehill to step up in this game, and he did the opposite. He basically handed the game to the Bengals. The defense played so well. If he wouldn't have messed up, they would have won the game.
Maybe I should go coach the Titans because I said last week on the podcast, do not rely on Derrick Henry. You need to use the other running backs that have been succeeding, and they didn't enough. Foreman only had 4 carries.
Yeah,
Foreman's been running the ball really well behind Derrick, in
So-
Derrick Henry's absence.
So I don't know exactly what Foreman, and I'm not disagreeing that Foreman played well at all. I 100% agree with that. But Foreman had that one really long run. I'm not sure.
45-yard
45-yarder. And that was one of those, he got the blocks and the hole that you never saw Derrick Henry get all game long. And that's possibly because when the Bengals saw Henry come into the game, they might change their scheme, change their play call to adequately defend Derrick Henry. But, I mean, other than that long run, Foreman still played well for only having 4 carries. But the Bengals just kind of had their running backs bottled up all game long. And
Well,
when you got...
Here's one of the problems with bringing back a Derrick Henry like this. It happens all the time when you bring a star player back from injury like this. That offensive line had gotten used to blocking for Foreman. And, he's a little bit different of a runner, maybe Foreman's just a little bit quicker to the hole. I'm not saying you're wrong, Cody. Maybe it was just the holes. Maybe they just didn't get those perfect blocks on that. But I think there is something to be said for, offensive linemen adjust. I heard it all the time when Le'Veon Bell, his style of patient running, the offensive line had to adjust. That might have played a part in it.
Ryan Tannehill still has 2 more years in Tennessee before he's a free agent. But his cap hit is after this year's not crazy. So if you could find a trade for him,
Ryan Tannehill needs to play the game like an Alex Smith or a Jimmy G, or be a game manager. But he kind of
another thing.
He tries to go out there and play like a gunslinger, and that's...
The Titans are built to have Derrick Henry healthy too. I mean, they didn't expect Tannehill to have to come into a playoff game and win him the game, but he didn't really have to in this game. He just had to not lose them the game, and he lost them the game.
That is true.
Who dey?
Alrighty. So last game of the weekend was without a doubt the best game of the weekend. Um, regardless of who you're a fan of, there was 4 lead changes and 1 tie in the fourth quarter / overtime, and that was all within a minute and 54 seconds of the final buzzer. So pretty crazy. I'm gonna let Kai go first on this because he give us the most unbiased view of it. But Kai, Chiefs Bills.
You didn't lose me. That game left me speechless.
What a
I mean, game of the year. We might look back in a month and say that was the Super Bowl. Credit. We got to give our credit to Josh Allen. The one thing Bills fans are thinking right now, and I'm kind of creeping into my mind, if Tre'Davious White plays that game, the Bills could be winning the Super Bowl this year. No disrespect to the Chiefs. The Bills just played that good. They let this one slip away. When you got a 3-point lead with 13 seconds left, that's going to be a hard one to swallow. The Bills are going to be just fine, though. Don't worry. Buffalo fans, they're good fans. They know what happened. They know the Bills are going to be back. They're going to turn the corner, turn the page. Allen's going to win a Super Bowl. It's only a matter of time. One of these years when the Chiefs are down, maybe when Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are gone, they're going to have their shot. It just, unfortunately for them, wasn't this year. And, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Best duo in the league, hands down. Just 13 seconds left, and you go, 50 yards in 13 seconds? Now, it helped they had their timeouts. Credit Andy Reid for having their timeouts. Credit they're always prepared. You see all these other teams unprepared, blowing timeouts when they shouldn't have to. That won the Chiefs this game. That right there solely won the Chiefs this game.
So I got a couple things to say about this game. The first one is I completely agree with you in the timeout situation, Kai. I hate when I see teams 2 minutes into the third quarter using a timeout to avoid a delay a game when they're, on the 20 in their own side of the field. Like, just eat the 5 yards and go on and punt it like you were going to. Save that timeout for the end, because that is why you need all 3 timeouts at the end of the game. That is exactly why. But getting into what I said, I've been saying since about week 15 last year, there is 2 top quarterbacks in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. And after that, Josh Allen is the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL. And there's an argument to be made for Brady. There's an argument to be made for maybe Matt Stafford or some other guys. But Josh Allen proved that. That was Josh Allen's, for as good as he's been the last 3 years, that was his coming out party. That was the, hey, like Carl said, I'm going to lay my nuts on the table, show you guys what I'm working with. That was Josh Allen's game Sunday. They didn't win. Patrick Mahomes was just better. Travis Kelce was just better. Tyreek Hill was just better. But Josh Allen proved that game that he is the real deal, and he is the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL. And that may not be for much longer if he gets any better.
Yeah. First thing I want to do is say Tyrann Mathieu went out with a concussion in the first quarter, so their best defensive player out, our defensive. It was a wash.
Tre'Davious White greater than Tyrann Mathieu.
I don't think he has a greater impact than our safety, who's a playmaker. I disagree with that.
Our
But
safety,
anyways, that doesn't
the
matter.
leader of the defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, that doesn't matter. That's not the point. You said greatest duo. I think the Chiefs have the greatest trio. Tyreek Hill too. He caught that first pass on that last drive, and that's the thing. This Bills team. This game. I don't know that I've watched a more entertaining game. I think everyone was on the edge of their seat for the last 15 minutes of the game, but the whole game was crazy. The whole game was great. As you said, 13 seconds, too much time for Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes. The greatest thing was seeing Travis Kelce on the sideline telling Tyreek Hill on that first play, hey, they're going to man you here, so I want you to go out and then come back in. Sure enough, Travis Kelce and somebody else, I don't know who it was, get out ahead of Hill. He comes up with that first catch, and they get a couple blocks, so they get a few more yards. Next play, Travis Kelce says, hey, they were playing out. I'm just going to run right up the seam here. Mahomes goes up, does his cadence, says, Kelce, do it. Kelce, do it. I mean, those guys just, the wherewithal they have with each other is amazing. And it's not disrespect to Josh Allen. It's just, I mean, it's tough to compete with a team like that. I don't know that any other team would have beat the Bills on that night, and he just happened to run into the team that could do it. And Patrick Mahomes was amazing in that game.
He ran into Patrick Mahomes, not Pat Castle.
378 yards passing, 69 yards rushing, and he just looked like he was in the zone the entire game. I don't, like I said, I don't think there was any else that was going to beat the Bills that night, and it just happened. They were playing the Chiefs.
I said
Yeah,
it.
so
Go ahead, Carl.
that game as a whole, I mean, just has to be the best playoff game of all time.
I was thinking about this. I think the only
Four
one
lead changes / ties in the last 2 minutes of the game. The only other one is 2011 divisional Saints versus the Niners. They had 4 TDs in the last 4 minutes. It ended with Vernon Davis with no time catching that touchdown. Like,
wasn't there a Packers Cardinals game that was like 51-45 or something like that? Like it was in the last 10 years too. There was one that was like a shootout like that. That was the one that I was thinking of.
but it wouldn't have had this fourth quarter drama. Like, 13 seconds on the clock, kicking a field goal. Minute 54, they scored too fast. Josh Allen goes down and scores in a minute. Like, it's just crazy stuff, right? And so what we all kind of noticed early on, and I really appreciate it, the refs kind of let the players do their thing, right? And that's the only reason we got a game like this, is Black and White decided to kind of step back and just view it and not call the ticky-tack stuff that, you could call holding on every play in the NFL. Every single play, which is fine. You don't have to. And so I really appreciate that the refs let these two duke it out and let them go to town. But it is the ultimate what if game. What if White's not out? What if Matthew doesn't go down on the first drive? What if Butker doesn't miss 4 points worth of kicks? Like, there's a whole bunch of what ifs. What if Buffalo gets the coin toss? Like, this is probably the biggest what if game of like what could have been. And I said it as the fourth quarter was going on in the group chat, is this feels like whoever wins this game is winning the Super Bowl, because this is how stories are written. When you watch the NFL recap of the season, they put together the Super Bowl package for that team. This is it, right? Like, this is what they put in there. You can almost put the whole game in there. And it's Josh Allen who's trying to get over that Patrick Mahomes hump, and it's Patrick Mahomes trying to get back to a Super Bowl to win to. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But like, this game was just nuts. And I don't think I will ever see another game like this. Ever.
So,
like, non-playoffs, you had Chiefs Rams 3 or 4 years ago, whatever that was.
Mexico
That was
City.
a shootout, right?
Yeah.
But like, in the playoffs, you don't get games like this ever with this many score changes. So especially in the fourth quarter, like, that's just
So my
crazy.
pick to rival this game, you guys mentioned some other great games. Mine is the 2000 Super Bowl with Titans Rams, when it was not the excitement fest that this game was or some of those other games, but that last drive was so edge of your seat. Losing the Super Bowl by this many, like, that was crazy. But so my last thoughts or words on that game was, if you told me this quote and you said that any head coach in the league said it, this is not a homer thing, it would be my favorite sports quote of all time. And that's, when times are grim, be the Grim Reaper, is hands down my favorite sports quote I've ever heard in my life. I don't care if Andy Reid said it, Mike Tomlin said it, Phil Jackson said it, Pete Carroll said it. I don't care. That is the coldest quote I've ever heard in my life.
Imagine having that confidence in your quarterback to just, that's all you tell him when he goes to the field. When times are grim, be the Grim Reaper.
Yeah. It just,
all year long, Andy Reid's like, cheeseburgers are pretty great. And then when it gets to be game time, rain hellfire on them. Like, it's like, what's going on here? But what do you say to your guy with 13 seconds left? Like, you got to come up with that's a pretty good something to come up with. But like, go get him, Tiger. Like, what the hell do you say to a guy in that situation?
Well,
I actually heard LaShawn McCoy talking on the Dan Patrick show after this, and he said that Andy always did stuff like that to his guys. Not exactly like that, but like LaShawn McCoy would have 2 touchdowns in the second quarter and be like, "That's all you got for me? Come on, you got more than that." Like always trying to give him like something to get him motivated. And I mean, I don't know, you could have to come up with a better quote. 13 seconds on the clock and needing a field goal to tie it. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Last thing, the way the Chiefs, the way the Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey, and the way Pat Mahomes handles themselves off the field. Not Mahomes' brother. Leave him out of this conversation, but the way they handle themselves off the field, being superstars on the field, you see that become problems in a lot of places, even in Pittsburgh. It's with Mike Tomlin, who's considered a good coach. The way they act off the field, it speaks volumes to Andy Reid. I mean, it's hands down Andy Reid and the way he treats his guys. Those guys don't want to let him down. That's one of the biggest differences. It's Pat Mahomes is great, and he's probably the best quarterback in the NFL. But that speaks volumes about Andy Reid. The dude's a genius. Offensively, just treating his players, and you see the results from it.
Yeah, I can't stand when he gets criticism from fans because things changed like that in Kansas City when he came.
Here's how much Andy Reid cares about that criticism.
Yeah, but it's
My
just
fingers are touching.
All right, so to segue into the first game on Sunday, we got Cincinnati at Kansas City -7. And so this is Kansas City's 4th AFC Championship game, hosting their 4th in a row, which is something nobody's ever done. But, I will say there's Cincinnati, they're kind of playing with house money. Kansas City has all the pressure on this. And here's why, right? So for a young Patrick Mahomes, getting to 4 AFC championships and getting to 2 Super Bowls is impressive, right? If you make it to 4 AFC championships in a row and you only have 1 Super Bowl win out of those 4, that's a bad check on your record. Andy Reid making it to 4 AFC championship games in a row. He went to 3 NFC championship games in a row with the Eagles, and I think maybe 5 total with the Eagles. If he only comes out of those 9 championship games with 1 Super Bowl, we're going to have to hear about it for literally the rest of our lives anytime somebody brings up Andy Reid. Even though they have that 1, it's never going to be enough. Like, we still talk about the Bills losing 4 Super Bowls in a row, which is worse, obviously. But, like, Kansas City has all the pressure on this one, in my mind. Like, there's Cincinnati can come in there guilt-free, blow the doors off of Kansas City. Kansas City needs to win this game, hands down. It's a must win.
You are speaking truths. You're 100% right. Cincinnati's the Cinderella of this story. They almost feel like more like a March Madness story than an NFL story. In the NFL, it always seems like teams kind of the cream rises to the top. And Cincinnati may be right now the second best team in the AFC outside of Buffalo, but Cincinnati has nothing to lose. They're the team that nobody is expecting to win this game. Nobody expected them to win last week, I don't think. And I'm not sure very many people expected them to win the week before that. But they have nothing to lose, everything to play for here. It's on the line for Kansas City, and what you just said, if that's what you take stake in, is that getting there is not good enough. In my opinion, whether we're talking about Andy Reid with the Chiefs, Andy Reid with the Eagles, the Bills back in the early 90s, or whenever that was, late 80s,
mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
Early to mid-90s.
You want to win. You want to win 4 out of 4. 2 out of 4 is a consolation prize. But just getting there, like, you're better than everyone else in the AFC for 4 years in a row. Like, yes, you want to win. As a fan, I want to win. But I don't think anything against Jim Kelly for not winning those 4 Super Bowls. As a fan, you want to see them win, but that doesn't take away from their greatness. If you don't win them, you're still one of the top 2 to 4 teams in the league for a considerable period of time.
Yeah, I see what you guys are trying to do, but just like I just said about Andy Reid, his demeanor, his style. Chiefs aren't feeling any pressure. They have no pressure on themselves at all. They are going out there and playing football. That's what Andy Reid sets the example. That's what Patrick Mahomes loves to do. Travis Kelce, Tyreek. That's what they love to do. They're feeling zero pressure. And this game, it feels to me like Cincinnati. You had a great run, but this is not your year. This is a learning experience for Cincinnati. They're going to have to go in there and play great. I don't think they have it in them. Arrowhead's a different story than playing at home against the Chiefs. I mean, they better be ready to play some football, or the Chiefs are going to put it on them early. That's all I've got. That's just how I feel about this game. Bengals better be ready to play, or it's going to be a smack. They're going to get punched in the throat. They're going to get. You're going to think the Detroit Lions coach is on the Chiefs sidelines because their kneecaps are going to get broke. That's just. It feels like a Chiefs game to me.
Did you guys
Bengals
see
aren't
what Joe
ready.
Burrow said when somebody asked him about Arrowhead?
No.
He basically said there's no NFL stadium as loud as an SEC stadium.
That
And
that was a comment from like months ago that somebody just attributed to now. He didn't specifically
somebody just.
say it about Arrowhead,
Oh, I thought it was about Arrowhead.
and he's never
Interesting.
played in Arrowhead. But
To be fair to Burrow, though, that's what makes him a winner. He has no fear. I mean,
Yeah.
people are going to take that out of context, but I personally like that about him. And
You want-
SEC
No, I mean you
stadiums are
don't want to have
loud.
fear going to play somewhere, but also it can get louder. Like I don't. It's no different than motivating your opponents. Like it can get louder. People see that comment. It's kind of like when Colin Cowherd said a few years ago that it was gonna be really cold for that Colts game and it was icy, so Arrowhead wasn't gonna be loud. And then Andrew Luck couldn't hear. No one. Andrew Luck couldn't hear his person talk next to him.
He's
It can
not
get
from
louder.
Missouri, clearly.
Yeah, it can get louder when you say stuff like that.
Does anybody want to know why Kai just said everything he just did?
That's not. I'm not a Chiefs
my
fan. I
picture.
can't put the cat's whammy on him.
I mean, I'm not. You guys are gonna say I'm putting the that's whammy on, but Kyler's being truthful. Like the Chiefs should go in and win this game. I mean, I don't think anyone else disagrees with that.
Bengals aren't quite ready for this.
But what Tyreek Hill said, anyone see his comments when he was waiting for the confirmation from Andy Reid about Travis Kelce's touchdown? This is why I don't think the Chiefs have pressure. He basically said they were asking him about stuff, and he basically said, "We go out there and play for each other." He's like, "Thank you for all our supporters. Thank you to all our doubters." He's like, "Earlier this year, we thought we were the shit. Excuse my language, and you guys brought us back down to life." He's like, "All we do is go out there and play for each other. That's all we do." Andy teaches us to go out there and play for one another. We're brothers, we're family, we love each other, and we go out there and play for one another. And that's what the Chiefs are going to go do. They're not feeling the pressure of we have to win this game or our future generations are going to talk down about us. Andy Reid's going to have them level headed. Like I said last week, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, that team isn't going to get distracted. They're going to be ready to play. Tyrann Mathieu, who said he's going to be healthy, he's going to have the defense ready to play. They'll be ready. The Chiefs should win this game. I don't even think the 7-point spread, like I would bet the Chiefs. Things happen. Like the Bengals could come in, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase could just torch us. It could happen, but the Chiefs should win this game.
So I've got two things there. So yeah, well, three now. I'm definitely taking Cincinnati +7 against the spread. That's kind of a no-brainer. But so this is kind of funny. Kansas City's been in the AFC Championship 4 years in a row, 4 different opponents in those 4 years. I just thought of that. They haven't played the same person twice, which is kind of good for the AFC as a whole. And yeah, Tom Brady left, so you'd figure, yeah, you've probably been back to at least 2 of those, whatever. But I think besides quarterback, the biggest discrepancy is going to be how many times Burrow's back hits the ground, because that O-line is atrocious. The Titans got pressure all day long, rushing 4. And, Melvin Ingram's playing good. Jones is playing okay. Like, there might be some issues for Burrow this time around. Like, it seems like the Chiefs' defense has kind of solidified a little bit. And yes, we just had this big to do with Josh Allen, but, the leader of the defense was out like I don't think Burrow can sustain that much pressure in the playoffs because pressure in the playoffs is bigger, right? And I know he's a big time guy, but I mean, hell, if you get sacked 9, 10 times, multiple games in a row, that's gonna wear you down, man. Like it's gonna start affecting your throws. It has to.
I'll say it
That
again when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs pass rush is moving Jones back interior more so has been a big help. It's gotten him the little push that he needs to be better this year. But Melvin Ingram, in the first few weeks we had him, he didn't show up in the stat sheet. You know, basketball always has that guy that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And Melvin Ingram was that guy for the Chiefs on the football field. Is he was getting pressure, he was causing discomfort in the quarterbacks. He just wasn't getting the sacks. He wasn't getting the tackle for losses. And now he is. And now everyone's talking about how good he's playing. When really, you know, he's been elevated these last few weeks, but he's been playing good since the Chiefs got him. It just hasn't showed up in the box score.
We good? All right. Moving on to the NFC. We got the Niners at SoFi Stadium for their second game at SoFi in 4 weeks. And the Rams are -3.5. What do you got?
I got Rams -3.5. I think we're gonna look back and say the Bills, Chiefs, and the Buccaneers Rams were the conference championships. I think it's just a weird year. I think the 49ers have, credit to them for making it this far. I think they've made it further than they should. I think the Rams win this one. It's hard to beat a good team 3 times. It is a divisional game, though. Anything can happen. But I just think the Rams defense has taken it up a notch in the playoffs. And I don't know if Jimmy G is going to be able to do enough. I think Cooper Kupp, I think Odell Beckham, I think they're going to do too much for the 49ers offense to keep up with. I think it's going to be like a 27-14 game, 27-17.
So
I brought up Sean McVay earlier for a reason, and it was this. So yeah, it's hard to beat a good team 3 times, but they would be going on to trying to beat a good team 7 times in a row. Over the last 10 years, the Rams are 6-13-1 against the Niners, and McVay all time is 3-7 against Shanahan. So obviously, the Niners have some sort of juju voodoo over the Rams, and the Rams better be careful. So yeah, they had a 17-point lead at one point. They're in week 18, and they blew it, right? And then they had a however many point lead against the Buccaneers last week, and they blew it. And they ended up winning that game, but they blew that lead. So, eventually your turnover bug has to go away to be good in the playoffs. And if it goes away this game, they're going to win by 20. But if they have this turnover bug show up again, the way San Francisco can play, man, you better watch out. Like, Shanahan's a good coach. And I know I kind of ride him a little bit, but like, he is and McVay's a good coach too, but Shanahan has McVay's number. And this is for all of the NFC marbles. And it's good that it's a division showdown. That's kind of fun to see that it's NFC West versus NFC West as the division we thought was the best in football, like as a whole. So, that's fun, but the Rams need to stop that turnover bug or they will lose to the Niners. If the Rams have 3 turnovers, they will lose to the Niners.
couple things from my end. First, upset alert. 12 minutes left in the game. Mizzou is beating number 1 Auburn 40-38. That just randomly popped up on my ESPN. For those who don't know,
Mizzou just beat the number 1 team in the country. They'll lose to the worst team in the SEC next week.
You better put that picture back up that you just had a second ago.
I don't follow college basketball at all. Don't give 2 hoots about Mizzou, even though I'm a Missouri boy. But that's kind of cool. But to the Rams-Niners game, you guys are talking about the spread. It was 7, right? Is that what you said?
3.5.
3.5
for the Rams.
I'm not betting on either team because LA should win this game. By all means, I think will win this game. But the Niners are just that team that feels destined to make it there this year. They're winning games they shouldn't. They're winning games they should have lost. They're winning games against, I would say, more talented teams. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to bet against the Niners at this point in time. The Rams were my preseason pick to make it to the Super Bowl. I'm not changing against that now, but the Niners are good right now. Kyle Shanahan's amazing coach. He uses Debo Samuel in such a unique way, and then defensively they're just very strong. So Carl said it right. If they can force 2 to 3 turnovers, this is going to be a game. If LA just comes out and takes care of the ball and plays how they need to play, it could be a 2 to 3 score game. But I'm not betting on that. I'm betting on this to be a dogfight, and I'm most certainly not betting against the Niners at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I said a second ago about the Packers Niners game. I have no words. I honestly don't have any words for this game. The Rams should win this game. The Rams shouldn't have lost to the Niners twice this year. I I don't know what else to say, because last week Niners went against a team that the Packers had a good defense this year. The Packers had a good running game this year. Packers have one of the best receivers in the NFL. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Granted, the Niners defense is a little bit better than the Packers, but it's not big enough that should have won the Niners the game. This week, the Rams probably have a better defense, but they don't have as good a quarterback. Well, I don't know if they have a better defense. The defenses are more equal because of the pass rush the Rams bring, I should say. And the Rams don't have quite as good a quarterback. So what's that mean for the game? I don't know. The Rams have a better coach, or a more proven coach, I should say. I don't know if I would say better. He's still proven himself in Green Bay. The Rams should win this game. I can say it 1,000 times over, but the Packers should have won last week too. So, and the Rams, like Carl said, have proven they can't put games away sometimes. Gave the Bucks a chance last week. The Bucks just couldn't finish on it.
The
I
difference,
expect it to be a close game, even though I don't think it should be.
the difference in this game compared to the Packers 49ers game last week is this game's being played in California in a dome. Or if they might have the roof open, but it's California. And last week was played in the snow, which we talked about last week, actually played into the 49ers' hands, and you saw it in the game. That's the
So-
difference in this week's game.
So theoretical situation, because there's a chance that he might get knocked out of the playoffs this week, and then that theoretical's gone. Niners win this game, then they win the Super Bowl in LA with Jimmy Garoppolo as the coach or as the quarterback, and they win it in their division rivals' home stadium. You keep Jimmy Garoppolo around as the quarterback, right? Like, you want the Rams to remember that. You
No,
move
because
on to
they're
Trey
not
Lance.
winning because of Jimmy Garoppolo. They're winning in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo.
But you won the
They'll,
Super Bowl.
they'll do the same thing they did to Alex Smith. They'll do the same exact thing.
I don't like. So yeah, this is in theory the Niners' 4th playoff game in a row if you count Week 18 because it was win and you're in. Like, they had to win that game, and so eventually that's going to wear you down a little bit. But if Jimmy G wins this game and then wins the Super Bowl, he's still gone either way. Like it doesn't matter because Jimmy G is not what's winning these ball games. Debo Samuel is winning these ball games. Kyle Shanahan is winning these ball games. Kittle, that offensive line, Bosa, like they're the ones winning these ball games. Like it's not Jimmy G. You could find probably a dozen people in the NFL that can go in there and do what Jimmy G is doing. So it's not
Probably
it's not
more, I
worth
would
doing.
say, the way he's played in the last
Move
couple.
on to Trey Lance, see if he can do it. Give him a year to try to do what Jimmy G is doing. You can't do much worse. So the only thing you could do worse is turn the ball over more. So as long as he controls turnovers, he can go 11 for 19 in a game. Like, I don't know.
Add a few rushing yards, probably.
Definitely add a few rushing yards.
All right, so that was all 4 of us picked Kansas City. Is that right? And then Cody,
Yeah.
were you picking the Niners?
No, I picked the Rams.
Okay, so everybody's on the same page.
I guess I'll
what's
take the
the
Niners and try
standings?
and come back.
What's the standings?
The overall standings are Cody and I are at 8-2, Ty's at 7-3, Kelsey's at 5-5. So Kelsey's a little
I'll
bit
just wait
behind.
till the Super Bowl.
Kelsey would have to be perfect from here on out, and Cody and I both have to lose
Basically,
one.
I need to pick the
You'd have to
Bengals
be
and the
perfect.
Niners. I'm not
You
picking
have
the
to be
Bengals.
perfect from here on out, and we have to lose out for you
So I'll
to.
just take my losses.
And
I'm
here
going
I
to-
thought I was going 0-4 last week.
You at 2-2. I was 3-1 against the spread, though. I was kind of happy about that. All right, so 2 cleanup items. We're going to stay in the NFL real quick. Sean Payton done in New Orleans. Do you think Bieniemy gets that job, or is Bieniemy he's just fake interviewing with everybody else? He's waiting for Andy Reid to be done. What's he doing?
At this point, I don't know where Bieniemy or if Bieniemy gets a job. I don't know I mean, I thought he's going to get a job last year. I don't want him to get a job in Denver. I want him to get a job. I don't want it to be in Denver because they already have a good roster. He gets a good quarterback there. I think that's just another speed bump in the Chiefs' way. We already have Herbert to go against every year.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Uh, I mean, if Bieniemy didn't get a job the last 2 years, especially last year, I don't know what the holdup could possibly be on hiring him. Um, I hope he doesn't leave selfishly. I think he's the most deserving guy of a head coaching job in the league, but I hope he stays right where he's at, making money and winning games. So, Bieniemy,
Andy Reid.
when you watch this tomorrow morning, stay right where you're at.
Andy Reid's coaching tree is all over the NFL. So, I mean, his coaching tree has had success in the NFL. But maybe people are looking at the last 2 hires, Peterson and Nagy, and trying to stay away from Reid's coach. I don't know. That's the only thing I can possibly think of. Even though Peterson won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, he was immediately fired a year later, or whatever, 2 years later. Maybe
Philadelphia
I
is
don't
the
know.
only city that would do that.
They also fired Andy Reid too.
I'm,
So I mean,
I'm
it
not
says a
gonna.
lot about the Eagles.
I'm not gonna speculate on coaching hires. I don't understand it half the time. It doesn't make any sense. Bieniemy deserves a job somewhere. Flores got fired. I don't know. I'm not speculating. They're gonna do some crazy stuff. Mike McCarthy got hired in Dallas.
All right, then I promised it at the beginning, and we're going to circle back to it. So, a bunch of old elitist assholes kept Barry Bonds out of the Hall of Fame. This was his last year on the ballot, only got 66%. That is an absolute travesty. So, there is a whole generation of folks that only give a shit about baseball because of Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds and what they did in the late 90s and early 2000s. And you are literally telling these people, we don't give a care about you. Yes, steroids, performance enhancing drugs. Oh my God. Who wasn't taking them back then? It was part
Chipper
of
Jones.
baseball. It was part of baseball, and you were the ones that let it happen. So, all these writers out there, the purest of the game, you were born in 1943. Shut the hell up, go to bed, let Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame, because this is bullshit. He has the most home runs of all time. The dude got intentionally walked with the bases loaded when he was in his prime. And you want how many people are in the Hall of Fame right now where they were taking amphetamines before the games in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and you kept them in? Like, kick them out. It's not okay for the person who has the most home runs ever to not be in the Hall of Fame, and you should be ashamed. You really should. That's all there is to it. Clemens, keep him out. He's an asshole. But Barry Bonds is the best hitter to ever play the game, and it's a crying shame that you guys could not get over yourselves. An entire generation of people that watch baseball purely because of him, and you kept him out of the Hall of Fame. Shame on you.
I mean, MLB's trying to stay alive and trying to keep the game interesting for younger people. And I think this just diminishes it. Barry Bonds is the greatest hitter of all time. That's going to diminish people from wanting, maybe not on a large scale, but it's going to have an effect. I mean, it's I think it's embarrassing.
It's amazing the short-term memory these people have. Baseball was
When he
on
was
its way
doing
out
that,
before McGuire and Sosa
when
had
they
their
were
home
doing
run
that,
chase in
they were
98.
they were using every bit of that and relishing all of that home run chase, all of that. That's what it made baseball great again.
Baseball's
No, it's
popularity was an all-time low in the mid to late 90s, and McGuire and Sosa and Griffey saved baseball. And then Bonds built on that. I just
Best hitter ever, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, everything Carl said is what I would just repeat it. Baseball is attempting to be more progressive now in order to bring in the younger generation to a somewhat long and boring sport if you're not a fan of it. They're trying to get new faces in the door. They're trying to get all cultures and backgrounds in the door. And I feel like the MLB is doing a good job of that. And then for these old head, I'm going to assume mostly white guys that are in the Hall of Fame committee to keep these guys out because I'm just echoing what Carl said with the guys who did amphetamines and were on uppers and downers and drinking and probably had 10 DUIs apiece and who knows what they were doing in the back alleys before and after games. To keep these guys out is just, it's a shame. It's an elitist move. It's horrible for baseball. And there's just too much to even put into words. It's sickening. It's horrible for the sport. You're hanging on for dear life. Football is running away with popularity in America. Basketball is chasing it as hard as it can. And baseball, who I think all of us appreciate and want to stay around, is just not making the right moves to stay relevant.
Golf?
Golf is moving up.
Is golf overtaking baseball? I wouldn't
the
say
one
yes,
I'd be
but
the one I'd be worried about is soccer, or hockey. Hockey even is getting more popular in
hockey
you know,
is
in the U.S.
And
Soccer has always had the potential to be bigger than all of it. It just will never be in the United States
Because of
because of the
football.
NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I would say, I think the job of the Hall of Fame is to tell the story. Like that's what the job of the Hall of Fame is to do, and they're just deciding to leave an entire generation of the story out.
Except for Chipper Jones.
so
You got-
what? So
You got McGuire, Sosa, Bonds, Palmeiro, A-Rod probably won't make it in. Like all of those guys, it's asinine. They were the best players of our generation. All four of us sitting here, they were the best players of our generation.
They were
Best
the
hitters
best
of our
players
generation.
out of everybody that was taking steroids.
Yes.
So if they all weren't taking steroids, they still would have been the best players.
Barry Bonds would have still been one of the greatest players of all time.
Yes.
I
He
mean,
He was still
yeah,
a
I mean,
very good hitter.
he was in
he
the
was a great,
argument.
and a great outfielder.
He was in the argument before steroids were even discussed with him. He was still, a Hall of Fame caliber player. But yeah, that's the thing is with our generation, I'm just repeating it's just absolutely ludicrous. These guys aren't in. You don't let Pete Rose in, the guy with the most hits of all time. Put an asterisk by his name. Yeah, he was a scumbag who bet on games, apparently only on his team to win. Regardless, what does betting have to do with hitting the baseball? He hit the baseball better than anyone else ever, other than maybe Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds, most home runs of all time. I don't care if he took so many steroids, he just had one big arm coming out of the middle of his fucking chest, swinging the bat. He still could hit the ball, and he could still hit it farthest as anyone. And then Roger Clemens, most Cy Youngs of all time, and you're going to keep him out. You can't tell the story of baseball without those three guys.
That is very true. I could tell it without Clemens. I really could. But I can't tell without Bonds or Pete Rose. And, Pete Rose's sake, have you checked to make sure nobody else bet on the game? Is there nobody else in the Hall of Fame that bet on the game? Because I'm willing to bet
There
that
was.
there is. It just is what it is. Baseball has been full of betting scandals since the beginning of time. The Chicago Black Sox, it's just part of baseball to bet on. It's part of sports to bet on. Everybody bets on sports, whether you want to or not. Quarter a game, who cares? It just happens. Oh, you have to wear this T-shirt if they lose. That's betting, folks. And so, to keep Pete Rose out, like Cody mentioned, it's just stupid. And the writers need to all just get over themselves. You're not the gatekeepers for these players. You're supposed to recognize, because you wrote about the game of baseball, how much money did you guys make about writing about the steroid scandal? So you're not the gatekeepers for the Hall of Fame. You're supposed to put who you think your fan bases think are the best players of all time, and there's not a single fan base out there that doesn't agree with any of that. So there you have it. baseball soapbox in January. Doesn't happen very often, but that's where we're going to leave you. Should have some exciting AFC and NFC championship games coming up, and then we'll see what the Super Bowl looks like from there. So Super Bowl's, biggest television event of the year every year. So we get to see a hell of a halftime show queued up for you
Yeah, that
guys.
that halftime show looks
Unless
great.
you're over the age of 50, the halftime show is going to resonate with you. Unless you're a progressive 50-year-old. So if you're not a baseball writer, you probably will like the Hall of Fame or the halftime show. But until then, you guys be good out there. Don't drink and drive, and tell your grandma 430 podcast appreciates her support. Deuces.